Are either one of these any good? Sir?
What?
Are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 90s nostalgia movies.
If it's a concussion, you have to keep her conscious, okay? Ask her questions.
What's 7 times 7?
Stuff she knows.
For this list, we'll be looking at movies from the 1990s that generate strong feelings of nostalgia through their costumes, production design, music, and stories. Which of these movies made you feel the most nostalgic? Let us know in the comments below. Number 10. Reality Bites. Many people have strong memories of the 90s, but the decade was actually filled with quite a bit of sadness and aimlessness.
You better do it now, and you better do it fast, because the world doesn't owe you any favors.
Generation X was highly criticized at the time, particularly by the baby boomers who preceded them. They were cynical, lazy, and non-committal.
Lainey, what are you doing? What are you doing? You lay on that couch all day. Those pajamas are like your uniform. You run up a $400 phone bill. You watch TV, you chain smoke, you don't go outside, you don't do anything. Man, you are in the bell jar.
They liked heavy music. They dressed funny. Of course, Gen X didn't see themselves that way, and they made movies to express themselves. Reality Bites is Ben Stiller's directorial debut, and he made a movie for and about Generation X.
I was really gonna be something by the age of 23.
Honey, all you have to be by the age of 23 is yourself.
Yes, their problems and general attitudes still resonate today, but the movie's angsty tone, not to mention fashion, is very much a product of the early 90s, and we are absolutely here for it. Number 9. Swingers. Nowadays, Jon Favreau is writing widely beloved superhero movies and television shows. In the mid-90s, he wrote Swingers.
She didn't like me, okay? I'm in a fool of myself.
Baby, don't talk that way.
You're so money and you don't even know it.
Both excellent, but with totally different vibes. Beginning in the late 80s, America suddenly took an interest in old-fashioned swing music. Don't ask why, it just happened. The swing revival peaked in the mid-90s, and Swingers was made to capitalize on its popularity.
And it's you and me and the bottle makes 3 tonight.
Hi, Fred.
Nostalgia is often rooted in fads and crazes because those are the things we remember best about the period in question. Swingers reminds us of the mid-90s because it's centered around the big fad of the time. That and seeing Vince Vaughn in his mid-20s.
I've been out of the game for so long, man. It's been like 6 years.
Mike, listen, it's hard. I know, I've been there myself. I mean, not for 6 years or anything, but I've been there.
Number 8. Wayne's World.
Wayne's World, Wayne's World, party time, excellent.
This movie is pure 90s, both in terms of visuals and pop culture. There's certainly a bit of bleed over from the late 80s, including the very concept itself. Wayne's World started as a sketch on Saturday Night Live, and it debuted during the show's 13th season in 1989.
Uh-oh, don't look. Stacy.
Where? Oh God, I made eye contact.
That said, most people associate Wayne's World with the early 90s. There's the fashion, including the long hair and Garth's plaid shirts, and the movie reminds us of the cultural power that Mike Myers once held.
I've had plenty of Joe jobs. Nothing I'd call a career.
Nothing screams early 90s quite like SNL, Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, and Lara Flynn Boyle. The music is 70s, the fashion is late 80s, but the movie itself is very 90s. Number 7. Jerry Maguire. This movie dominated the pop culture discussion throughout the mid and late 90s.
Help me help you. Help me help you.
Everyone was quoting it, and it became the butt of numerous parodies. Of course, there are the iconic quotes including "Show me the money" and "You had me at hello."
Shut up. You had me at hello. You had me at hello.
Say or remember any of those two and you'll be instantly transported back to the mid-90s. The cast, though certainly wonderful, also reeks of the time. You've got Tom Cruise before he became a mega action star, Renee Zellweger, Jerry O'Connell, and perhaps the biggest symbol of the 90s, Cuba Gooding Jr. It also reminds us of a time when these kinds of smaller and more personal movies became mega blockbusters and major cultural forces. What beautiful nostalgia it inspires.
Jerry Maguire, my agent. You are my ambassador of Quan, man.
Number 6. Reservoir Dogs. In many ways, Reservoir Dogs has not dated. The fashion carries well into the 21st century. You know, aside from Eddie's neon windbreaker, Quentin Tarantino is still dominating Hollywood, and the music was intentionally old-fashioned.
Well, I don't know why I came here tonight.
Reservoir Dogs doesn't inspire nostalgia through its images so much as its general style. Tarantino's introduction was both very exciting and highly unpredictable, and his first movie is a masterpiece of independent cinema.
Come on, throw in a buck.
I don't tip.
You don't tip?
No, I don't believe in it.
You don't believe in tipping?
In fact, Tarantino is often credited as one of the forerunners of the independent cinema movement, and this helped change the industry throughout the 90s. This is old school Tarantino, and it is glorious.
Who cares what your name is?
Yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're Mr. White. You have a cool sounding name.
Number 5. Speed. This movie has a great premise, and it's helped by a fantastic cast, a surprisingly smart script, and a terrific sense of nostalgia.
Did you have any luck with the bomb?
Yeah, it didn't go off.
Early 90s Los Angeles is depicted in all its nostalgic glory, and the old vehicles really takes one back. But it's the cast that really gets the nostalgic juices flowing.
What is that, snow?
It's gas.
We're leaking gas?
We are now.
What, you felt you needed another challenge or something?
You've got young versions of Keanu Reeves, Jeff Daniels, and Sandra Bullock, all of whom were icons of the 90s. There are also some major 80s stars who carried over into the early 90s, including villain actor Dennis Hopper and Alan Ruck of Ferris Bueller's Day Off fame.
We're at the airport.
Yeah, so?
I already seen the airport.
It's a classic of 90s action cinema, and it is every bit as enjoyable today as it was back then. Number 4. Falling Down. All things considered, this is one of the smarter movies that Joel Schumacher has directed. As discussed previously, the 90s was a time of general malaise and disillusionment, and it wasn't just Generation X feeling the sting.
I'm overeducated, underskilled. Maybe it's the other way around, I forget.
In this movie, middle-aged Michael Douglas plays a seriously ticked-off engineer named William. While sitting in traffic, Will snaps and embarks on a rampage through LA, all while commenting on various issues that plagued late 80s and early 90s America.
Hey, they lie to everybody. They lie to the fish. But that doesn't give you any special right to do what you did today.
It's another nostalgic example of the downcast tone that many 90s movies took against everyday life. Of course, there's also William's adventure through early 90s Los Angeles, and the visuals have more than enough power to generate strong feelings of nostalgia.
Look at this sorry, miserable, squashed thing. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with this picture?
Number 3. Clueless. This movie takes Jane Austen's Emma and moves it nearly 200 years into the future. It's also one of the most 90s movies ever.
Why am I even listening to you to begin with? You're a virgin who can't drive.
Oh, that was way harsh, Ty.
There's the cast, starring major stars of the time like Alicia Silverstone, Brittany Murphy, and Wallace Shawn. There's the soundtrack with popular 90s artists like Counting Crows, Radiohead, and Beastie Boys.
Yuck. The maudlin music of the university station.
Wow, wow, wow.
Of course, there's also the movie's iconic sense of fashion, some of which totally reek of the 90s, like Cher's yellow plaid on plaid and the men's baggy outfits. And finally, there's the incessant use of 90s slang, including classics like As If, Buggin', and maybe, worst of all, Fat, with a PH.
Fat. Did you write that? That's like a famous quote. From where? Cliff's Notes. Oh.
If one wishes to bathe in 90s high school culture, one only needs to watch Clueless. Number 2. Boys in the Hood. This movie is one of the shining achievements of the decade, serving as a poignant glimpse into South Central LA.
Why is it that there's a gun shop on almost every corner in this community?
Why?
Tell you why. For the same reason that there's a liquor store on almost every corner in the black community.
It's also so gloriously 90s, it's not even funny. Nearly every aspect of it generates intense feelings of nostalgia. The cast, including Cuba Gooding Jr. and Ice Cube, the old-school hip-hop music, the hairstyles and outfits, including Gooding's yellow and black button-up that is plastered on the poster, the cars, the gang culture of early 90s Los Angeles.
You my son, you my problem. I want you to give me the gun.
It all represents a very specific time in American culture, and it represents it to perfection. The movie is in the Library of Congress for being culturally and historically significant, and it's not hard to see why.
I know every time you turn on the TV, that's what you see. Black people selling the rock, pushing the rock, pushing the rock. Yeah, I know. But that wasn't a problem as long as it was here. Wasn't a problem until it was in Iowa, and it showed up on Wall Street where there are hardly any black people.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Office Space, the most hilarious representation of the late 90s malaise.
It doesn't really matter. I don't like my job, and I don't think I'm gonna go anymore.
Clerks, the mid-90s in 90 minutes.
Anybody could waltz in here and do our jobs. You're so obsessed with making it seem so much more epic, so much more important than it really is.
Singles, packed with early 90s grunge artists like Eddie Vedder and Alice in Chains. Spice World, the Spice Girls. Need we say more?
We're the Spice Girls, yes indeed. Just girl power is all we need. We know how we got this far. Strength and courage in a wonder bra.
Rushmore, the first quirky taste of Wes Anderson.
Where did you go to school, by the way?
Harvard.
Really? That's a coincidence. My top schools where I want to apply to are Oxford and the Sorbonne. My safety's Harvard.
That's very ambitious.
Thank you.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Scream. When it comes to 90s nostalgia, no other movie beats Scream. It's simply the quintessential movie of the decade.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
The cast is a who's who of 90s stars, including Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, Matthew Lillard, Skeet Ulrich, and Jamie Kennedy. There's the alt-rock soundtrack containing artists like Birdbrain and Moby. There's the outfits and hairstyles. But best of all, there's the movie's tone and style.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
Scream basically introduced, or at least perfected, the postmodern horror film, and countless copycats popped up throughout the late 90s and early 2000s. While the movie still works exceptionally well today, it's very much a product of its time. Not that that's a bad thing.
If they'd watch Prom Night, they'd save time. There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.